Good morning. Alright, this video is about Matt Bartles, who used to be sheriff's deputy in Chapel, Nebraska. One of the deputies under Jeff Taco Ortiz. You notice my hair looks like one side's puffy and one side's not. I just woke up a few minutes ago. Alright, so here's the story of Matt Bartles and Jeff Baldridge and Western Intelligence Narcotics Group. Just after high school, there was a whole bunch of people in Chapel, Nebraska that were doing and selling meth. Some of them had been my friends previously. People like K. Slayton Morse, people like, Jason Vogt, people like Drake Chambers, a lot of people. Now, Matt Bartles, he used to be a pot salesman in Sidney, Nebraska in high school. So, I mean, he's got a history before he was ever an officer. So Matt Bartles, he gets this great idea in his head that I'll be this easy pushover who will give up his friends for a little bit of pot. So he wants me to roll over, but he's wanting me to roll over on potheads. This is stupid. So he wanted to have a meeting with me and Western Intelligence Narcotics Group, and of course, Wing, the Western Intelligence Narcotics Group, they come and see me down at the Dual County Sheriff's Office, and they're wanting me to wear a wire. They're not interested in Jeff Baldridge. They're interested in meth heads. Matt Bartles was trying to push that Jeff Baldridge is a meth head at the time. Well, here's the thing. As somebody who didn't use meth, didn't smoke meth, didn't mess with meth, yeah, if Jeff Baldridge was messing with meth, he's probably not going to do it in front of me. He's probably not going to share it with me or offer it to me. Yeah, not happening. So Jeff Baldridge, he's in a wheelchair, right? He's had multiple surgeries because he's been in a wheelchair since he was in junior high school, actually. And of course, his legs are severely atrophied. It's obvious that Jeff can't use his legs. And Jeff Baldridge tries to, or not Jeff Baldridge, Matt Bartles tries telling me that Jeff Baldridge can stand up. He said he came up behind Jeff and scared him one day, and Jeff stood up and took a couple of steps and then realized that, he'd just been busted walking, and Matt Bartles thought this was going to fly. He thought I was stupid. A lot of people make that assumption. It probably doesn't help that I play stupid, because when you're in Nebraska, well, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I didn't do that. So, of course, Western Intelligence Narcotics Group, it's a couple of guys who, they look like bikers, they're not well kept and clean cut like a police officer should be. Well, they want me to wear a wire. And, well, Jeff is, of course, the last person in town that really, why would you send somebody with a wire to go after Jeff Baldridge when there are plenty of other people in town who are doing far worse? And of course, Matt Bartles, he's wanting to push the Jeff Baldridge thing. This is some personal vendetta that Matt Bartles has with Jeff Baldridge. And they're asking me if I'll wear a wire, and I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, I'll wear a wire. I'll wear a wire. Now, of course, they never came back and asked me to wear a wire, because Western Intelligence Narcotics Group doesn't give a fuck about pot. They don't. Now, Jeff Baldridge is very, very outspoken, but he speaks up frequently and often about marijuana, about how he believes it should be legal. He doesn't hide it, not from anybody. But he also was not my pot salesman. He's not the one I bought my pot from. The only thing that I would have been able to record at Jeff Baldridge's would be, well, him refusing to sell me pot. Matt Bartles, on the other hand, distribution would have been the charge he would have been busted with if they had actually pursued it. Because if they were gonna have me wear a wire, I knew exactly what to do and what to say in that situation. I would have gone to Matt Bartles and said, "All right, dude, I'm scared. I'm scared to go over to Jeff's. I'm scared. I'm gonna need some pot to calm me down." Well, of course, it never got that far. That was Western Intelligence Narcotics Group's choice. If they had actually chosen to pursue Jeff Baldridge, they would have ended up arresting Matt Bartles for distribution of marijuana. I knew it would have been easy because Matt Bartles had given me pot before. When he asked me if I would go talk to the Western Intelligence Narcotics Group with him, or Wing, he gave me pot. Gave me pot in his squad car. So, he's one of the cops I went to after Natalie was killed. Try to get some advice and try to find a way to turn the bastards in. Matt Bartles was entirely unhelpful, but I didn't expect him to be helpful. I already knew his content of character. I always liked him, even after the situation with the Western Intelligence Narcotics Group. I still liked him. I mean, he was nice to me. And of course, when you grew up in the system and people just ain't so nice, you may know that these people are not genuine, but they're talking nice to you, and you do like getting talked to nicely. You do like it when people treat you like a person, even if they're ingenuine. I, to this day, don't understand why Matt Bartles in specific wanted to go after Jeff Baldridge. To this day, I don't understand why they didn't go after Jason Vogt. Why didn't they go after Jason Vogt? Why didn't they go after Drake Chambers? Why didn't they go after Matt Worley? I mean, Western Intelligence Narcotics Group, these are the people that they would have wanted to go after. That's not who Matt Bartles was wanting to go after. And it's been a lot of years ago, but I do know for a fact that the situation where we were all standing around in the Dual County Sheriff's Department having that conversation, I do know that they made sure it was recorded. They put one of them 1980s tape recorders, the old ones with a cassette in it. And that's what they recorded it with. So there's a tape out there somewhere of Matt Bartles trying to convince me to roll over on Jeff Baldridge. And he's in that video, in that recording, it's got Matt Bartles telling that story of Jeff Baldridge standing up out at Chapel Lake and taking a few steps before he realized he was supposed to go back to pretending he could walk. He couldn't walk. Like, dude, yeah. That right there might have been a deciding factor too. When they realized that was on their recording, that Matt Bartles had literally lied about a man in a wheelchair being able to walk in order to convince a disabled person to lie. That don't make no damn sense. Of course, Matt Bartles, after that situation, he never ever asked me to roll over on anyone ever again. They never came back and hooked me up with a wire. They never came back and asked any questions about, well, any of the actual meth heads. They didn't come back and ask any questions at all. When you want to be a crooked officer or a crooked POS of any sort using your position that way, well, you need to keep in mind, first of all, Jeff is my friend. I love him above everyone else in Chapel, Nebraska. When it comes to protecting people, Jeff Baldridge, among all of the adults, he is the one that I am most likely to defend, the one I am most likely to protect. And part of that is because when I first started hanging out with Jeff, I saw him out in his yard moving rocks, flipping them over, push forward, flip it over, push forward, flip it over, push forward. It would take him an hour to move one of these rocks from one end of the yard to where he wanted it. He wanted all these rocks and cement chunks out of his yard. Well, we ended up building a little makeshift Stonehenge out of all these rocks and these cement chunks that were in his yard. Now, he was fine with doing the work himself. It helps to keep his mind busy. But also, he was appreciative of the assistance, and that was really where I started going over to Jeff Baldridge's almost every day. There was always a project he had that he was working on, and most of his projects were just for him. You know, a lot of his woodworking projects, he'd get a woodworking project from from his aunt, or from somebody that he knew from church, or somebody in town, and he'd work on the project, and we'd hang out and we'd talk trash and just friendly shop talk. And at that point in time, I had two places in Chapel, Nebraska that are my favorite places to go above all else. One of them is Jeff Baldridge's garage. The other one is Gary Jepson's garage. Both of those places are places where I did most of my learning in Chapel, Nebraska. By the time I moved to Chapel, everything I was going to learn in Chapel High School I already knew, had already been through, had already studied, much of it independently on my own. One of those situations, when I got kicked out of Lodgepole High School, they weren't going to let me start the school year in Chapel until after Christmas. So I had my history book for 2 whole weeks. Well, it didn't take me 2 whole weeks to read my history book. So by the time I went to Mr. E's class, Mr. Einram, U.S. History, I was already past everything that they had in the curriculum, and I'd already been caught up with everything that they'd already learned, and I got the highest test score average in that class. I got the highest test score average in every class. I just suffered from daily work because when you've already learned it and you're being held back, basically. You're being punished at that point because you're stuck in a school with fucking idiots, and it's a lot of fucking idiots. A lot of racism, a lot of hatred towards black folks, a lot of hatred towards the LGBT community. And of course, me being who I am, I stuck up for them. I stuck up for Brandy Erb's brother before anybody knew he was gay. I stuck up for Dakota Richmond before anybody knew he was gay. Well, that's not true. Everybody in his family already knew, with the exception of Todd Rust, who Dakota was his favorite. That was his golden boy, his golden child. Now, of course, we're getting past the story at hand, aren't we? Jeff Baldridge is friends with some of my predators. Quite a few of them, actually. He lives right across the street from Robert Warnick. He lives right next door to Leslie Snell. For me to go see him after having my life threatened by Robert Franklin Warnick in the middle of the street, well, it was best just to avoid that block altogether. If I went to visit Jeff Baldridge, I went through his backyard to walk up to his house so that nobody would give him any issues about me being there. They wouldn't know I'd even gone to visit Jeff. And of course, the situation with Leslie Snell, that happened after that. After the situation with Leslie Snell, going to Jeff Baldridge's is going to get Leslie Snell and her husband and all of them pretending I'm some sort of... They got busted breaking the fucking law, and then they broke the fucking law in order to hide the fact that they broke the fucking law. So, yeah, no, fuck you, Leslie. You're a piece of shit. Your husband's a piece of shit. Good people don't fucking do that. Good people don't take advantage of disabled folks. Good people don't cover for bad fucking cops. Whether that be Matt Bartles over 10 years ago. Damn, that would have been 20 years ago, wouldn't it? That would have been a long fucking time ago. Matt Bartles still lives in Chapel, by the way. He works for the Department of Roads now, I believe, but he was working for the Farmers Elevator Company. His boss, former boss, Jeff Taco Ortiz, works at the Farmers Elevator Company. It's just a big-ass building with a giant American flag painted on the side, but that don't make any sense to me, because as Nazi as that town is, I'm surprised it's an American flag they put up. But then again, to most of the world, the U.S. flag is synonymous with Nazism. It is synonymous with imperialism. It's synonymous with expansionism. And sure, we have not necessarily expanded our territory, except in cases of situations like Guam. But ain't none of this Jeff Baldridge's fault. Now, there's some pretty sick pieces of shit that Jeff is friends with, like Stretch. This is David Roop. This was our pot salesman. David Roop's the guy that sold all the fucking pot. I mean, shit, here we were, Chapel, Nebraska, pot's illegal. You can't buy nice nuggets like you can do today. I mean, Stretch seems to think that although he's getting this pot for like $200 a pound, and he's selling it to people, including kids. That includes Jason Vogt, Drake Chambers, a lot of the kids in town. I mean, Jeff Baldridge was not willing to do it, but Stretch, shit, he didn't care. It was all about making a profit. It didn't matter that these were children that he was selling it to. And of course, Jason Vogt, you go, oh, well, technically Jason Vogt was like 15 and 16. He's technically no, he's not technically an adult. Legally, he's a fucking child. Well, what classification would he be? He would be a minor, and he would be a teenager according to Nebraska law. So, the guy who they didn't ask about, didn't care about, didn't bother with, David Roop, aka Stretch, the guy who's actually selling marijuana to kids. But at the same time, why would they go after David Roop? Again, it's just pot. All of these guys were involved in far more than just pot. I mean, Adam Garrett, busy with meth. Jason Vogt, busy with meth. Jason Jeffson, busy with meth. All these guys, busy with meth. Meth, 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 meth. Western Intelligence Narcotics Group wants to get rid of the meth. They want to bust the meth heads at that point in time. So, of course, I never went over to Jeff Baldridge's with a wire. Never recorded nothing. And if I had, what would Jeff Baldridge have told me? If I had gone there with a wire to talk to Jeff Baldridge and try to buy some pot, what would Jeff Baldridge have told me? No, Sean, I'm not a pot salesman. Go to Dave Roop. And like I told you before, I was willing to wear a wire, but I was only willing to wear that wire to bust Matt Bartles. Don't be a piece of shit. Don't fucking lie to me. You won't like me.